Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Friday the 7th of July. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, as you all know by now. And I'm joined today on this gloomy Friday, weather-wise, by Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C. Macdonald on the Twitter handle. Good morning, Aidan. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm alright, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a good news week for Celtic. Couple of signings, re-signings. Let's say that. Kyogo committed himself to a 4-year deal, closely followed by Dyson Maeda yesterday. Feel good factor there, Aidan, still continues to course right through the club.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're both two very important players. Maybe two individuals that some fans thought might have moved on this summer. I think Kyogo was definitely, there was understandable speculation about him surrounding his contract, given there was only 2 years left before he signed the extension. So I think it's a good bit of business, Tony, to get two guys signed up. We know what they can do. They're proven commodities, and obviously there's been a lot of speculation about Celtic players this transfer window, but you don't want to be losing too many. So I was delighted to see them both being signed up over the last week.
Excellent. And if you were aware, yesterday myself and young Ryan did a breaking news briefing on Dyson Maeda's 4-year deal. You can see that it's on the YouTube channel. And if you enjoyed that, then why not take out a subscription to the Celtic Way? Myself, Ryan and Aidan endeavour to provide top quality journalism covering the club you love, and it's all for the click of a button. As you see running along the strap line at the bottom, hit that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You can receive unlimited access to everything that's written on the site. And that's by visiting www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, Joe Hart spoke yesterday at length. Aidan had a lot of interesting things to say. First time kind of Celtic players had faced the camera. Matt O'Reilly did something with Club TV the other day. It was only a couple of minutes, wasn't it? And also the new signings, Marco Tilly on Home of Odin Thiago Home have spoken on the club channel as well. But Joe Hart faced the media yesterday and had a lot of important things to say, didn't he?
Yeah, it was quite an interesting press conference, Tony. As you point out, this is the first time that somebody's really been in front of sort of maybe mainstream media. It's not been club media stuff since really the press conferences that obviously you were at the Scottish Cup final back in June. So it was interesting, and I think that the comments from Hart on a variety of topics were quite insightful. Wolves come to break them all down, but he discussed how kind of Andrew's departure, Jota, Kyogo's extension, and of course Brendan Rodgers, and how pre-season's been so far. So, it was a bit of an eye opener, Tony, and I think it was enjoy of every press conference was interesting as well.
Now, Joe himself has got a year left on his deal, but first thing he was asked was about the departing manager, Ange Postecoglou. This is what he said, Aidan. We shared 2 really special years together. They were obviously very successful. People were interested in what you're going to be doing next and what your ideas are. And look, Ange had a decision to make and he made it. We absolutely loved working under him, and I really enjoyed my time personally. I really got on with him as a person, and I wish him all the best. Football's got this kind of magical way of keep moving on. Next we get the news that Brendan's coming in, and we've got a new focus and a new task. We had, like I said, 2 excellent years of exciting football, front foot football, and we managed to win 5 out of the 6 domestic trophies. We did our best in Europe, and that is definitely something we felt like we could improve on, and we can look to do that under Brendan Rodgers now. Very on message and on point there, Aidan. It's a great 2 years. Andrew's gone, new era's coming in. Looking forward to it all. And also saying that he got on well with Andrew as a person. Might be one of the few that actually got on with Andrew as a person, because he seemed to be very aloof, didn't he, from a lot of things, Andrew. But I mean, that's obviously people are going to ask his thoughts on that. But it was quite interesting to see that, yep, he had a good couple of years, but focus is now is the future.
Yeah, it was positive to his comments. Obviously, he, like you say, played under Ange for 2 years and brought him to the club. So I think we would have been quite surprised if he had a bad word to say about him. And it was obviously nice to see that he has enjoyed his last 2 years at Celtic. You make a good point in that he has got only a year himself left on his contract. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Joe Hart. I know Ryan and I, and you as well, Tony, have kind of discussed that we think a kind of new number one option is probably, particularly if Celtic want to progress a bit more in Europe. You need somebody who can maybe make slightly more saves than Joe Hart and also be a bit better with the ball at his feet. I think Joe Hart would be a very solid number two at Celtic. Whether or not he would want to stay and do that, he might feel he can get first team football down south somewhere or elsewhere that would mean that he wouldn't have to stay. But I would be very happy if he was to stick around for another year, but maybe not as a number one.
Yeah, you not having him as a number one? Do you not think Brendan Rodgers, if he can get the best out of players, can get another level in Joe Hart?
I mean, he might be able to. Look, I think Craig Gordon, even though he did struggle with the ball at his feet, maybe came on a wee bit as a goalkeeper under Brendan Rodgers in his 2 years in terms of his shot stopping ability. When some people might have thought that that should be one of the priorities that Brendan Rodgers made when he first joined the club. Obviously, did sign Doris de Vries, but we know that didn't really work out, Tony. We don't need to go into that too much. But look, there could be a chance, but I just think some of Joe Hart's deficiencies, even in his shot stopping, were shown up at the end of the season. That game against St Mirren, for example, I just thought he was really, really poor for both goals, and isn't really the first time it's happened. I think it was Cantwell's goal in that game against Rangers at Ibrox as well. I thought Hart's positioning wasn't great, so yeah, I just think we could improve in that position. It's just such a vital area of the pitch. I wouldn't know if we wanting to take any chances, but on the flip side of that, we know how good Brendan Rodgers is at developing and getting the best out of players. If he thinks he can make Joe Hart into a better number one, then obviously we're going to back him to do that. But for me, I've kind of said it from the start, and really since the Scottish Cup final, that I think goalkeeper should be one of the priority positions for Celtic, if not the priority.
He did turn Craig Gordon into a goalkeeper though under Celtic. I mean, or improve Craig Gordon no end when he
Yeah,
was
that's
at
what I'm saying.
Celtic.
He did,
So
and obviously Craig Gordon had done okay under Ronnie Dyler, but I think he did improve some of his shot stopping abilities. Obviously, Stevie Wood's playing a massive role in that. We've got
yeah,
to mention, but I just think Joe Hart, just of his age and all that, etc., it may be better if we tried to get another option in because Seagrass, we don't really know what's been happening there, but
Mhm.
it seems like he's not been fancied by Ange. Rodgers might come in and think, oh, he's my man, but I don't know. I don't know if I can see that in Scott Bain. Enough said, Tony. I don't want to be harsh on the guy. We've seen what happened in that Hibs game. I believe that was his only performance, his only appearance of the whole season, and he struggled. So I don't think he's the answer either.
Well, I think it would be willful neglect of Celtic aren't looking for a new goalkeeper, considering Joe Hart only has a year in his contract. I think they'll obviously have the conversation that they all do. Joe Hart saying he's looking forward to working under Brendan, and he's maybe don't think he can give him assurances. Maybe at Joe's age that he will play all the time, so he maybe been honest enough to say, "Look, I am going to bring in another goalkeeper." You know, whether that acts as competition just now or for somebody who will take your place going forward, then maybe they've already had that conversation. But I think Celtic do. I agree with you. I think Celtic do need another goalkeeper going forward. There are some deficiencies in Joe's game, but what I will say is he's a natural born leader, and he has helped Celtic win a double and a treble since he arrived. And yeah, he's been a vital part of that success. And I would like to see him stay on. Whether that be that he can improve under Rodgers and still cement the number one position, it remains to be seen. But this is what he said about playing under Brendan Rodgers, or the kind of first impressions on Brendan Rodgers. He said, we've only been together for a couple of days now, but he's an exceptional guy. I've had run-ins in the past with him as an opponent, and I've actually bumped into him a few times on holiday. He's a lovely person first and foremost, which is very important, and a very successful manager. He has a huge drive. He has laid it on the line. He's actually stood here in front of us and let us know that. Our priority may be what we did last year, but that was last year, and we now need to build on it and try and improve and push each other. He's super positive. You can tell that he absolutely loves the club. You know, if he was to take his managerial hat off, he's a Celtic fan, and he's made it very clear that he's able to separate business and pleasure, and we are here for business. We are here to work. We're here to be successful and push each other and try and get the best out of each other. He wants to push the young guys and he wants the older guys to help with clear messages, and I'm excited to work under him. I like that, Aidan. That's the cold and clinical Brendan Rodgers that I want.
That's all positive stuff, Tony,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, of course.
Let's get to work, as he said, and Joe Hart just reiterating that message that you might have done well last season and won the treble, but this is a new season, got to do it all again. And also, obviously, I'm thinking he's thinking about Europe, the European scene as well, but he's laid it on the line to them already from day one and said, this is how it's going to be. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's positive, and that's what you need to do. Because as much as maybe we've discussed how Ange wasn't always kind of speaking to the players, he was undoubtedly a personality and had an aura about him round the ground. So Rodgers has got to come in and set his stall early to show that it is going to be a different way of doing things, or he's going to adapt certain aspects of what Ange was doing, etc. He's got to make clear what his position is, and it sounds like that's what he's done. It's only positive to hear that. We know about Brendan Rodgers like the man manager. I think anybody that's seen I know it became maybe poked fun at a wee bit, but the Being Liverpool documentary that was out a good few years ago knows that he's definitely a personality in and around the training ground and with the players. So I'm not surprised that he was setting out his stall early, Tony, but it's exactly what he should do. And I'm glad to hear that Joe Hart, somebody who's experienced his first impression of sort of training under Brendan Rodgers as positives. You'd imagine if that's the way he's feeling, then the younger players will sort of follow suit.
I think he's just a different type of manager from Ange, isn't he? Completely and utterly. Matt O'Reilly hinted at that when he said he likes to talk to the players, sit down and have them for lunch. Ange was more aloof from it. Ange told you that himself. So that's each to their own, isn't it? In that kind of sense. Managers have different styles, different philosophies, different ways of approaching the game, different ways of dealing with their players. And I'm not having a go at Ange because he was highly successful. Whatever works for you and whatever served you well throughout your career, you're going to stick with that, aren't you? But Brendan Rodgers is more of a kind of, a player's manager, isn't he? In terms of that he likes to mix with them, and you've seen that yourself. You watched the Liverpool documentary, as you say. You will have got all that from that. So, but that's not to say that. I mean, Ange clearly did it the right way for him when he was there, keeping his distance from the players and not falling in love and not getting too close, as he used to always say to each members of his personnel. Brendan's a bit different. Maybe likes to get close to players and can get inside their heads and see what they're thinking and stuff. Ange did it a different way, so kind of polar opposites of the managerial spectrum there, I think, Aidan.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And look, I think it can be good to freshen things up. Ange was undoubtedly successful in his time there, and I think maybe his strategy of being a bit aloof, he made that clear that meant there was no favourites. He was always picking the best players that he thought could go out and do the job. Now, I'm not saying just because Brendan Rodgers' strategy is a bit different, that means he's going to play favourites either. I don't think he will. I think he'll make very clear if said player doesn't think it's good enough. I mean, you only need to think back to his first spell. A lot of guys that just didn't really play because obviously he didn't rate them. So I don't think he'll have any worries about missing out or upsetting players because they're not getting minutes. I don't think that's a concern for him. But yeah, it's obviously a different style, and I don't think that's a bad thing, Tony. I think it is good to keep things fresh, and particularly if a manager moving on. Obviously, there's going to be continuity in terms of some of the players that are still there, the coaching staff. A lot of them are still there, but I think it's good to sort of freshen things up a wee bit as well.
Doesn't really matter what the message is, Aidan, as long as they can deliver success. I think that's all that everybody really cares about, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when Brendan Rodgers came in, Tony, obviously people had a lot of their opinions on it after he left. Understandably, a lot of fans were upset. But I think we'd said at the time, despite maybe the odd reservation you, Ryan, or I might have had about him coming back, that undoubtedly as a manager and in terms of a coaching ability, Brendan Rodgers is elite level. And if he can come in, get results, start the season well, win at Ibrox, hopefully do something in the Champions League, what that actually may be, or what will kind of count as success in that, maybe don't fully know yet. That'll be easier to see come September, October, November time when the games start. But if he can come in and he's going to be doing well with results, I'd imagine it will win most people around in the end.
Correct. I totally agree with that. You don't want much, do you? Winning start, Aidan winning at Ibrox and a dent in the Champions League.
I
My
know, I'm
goodness,
not that demanding, Tony. Do you know what
he's not even. He's just in the door. You know what I mean? Come on. I think that's what everybody wants, isn't it? Now, one player they will have to do that this season without is Jota, and Joe Hart even touched on him because he was asked a question about Jota, and this is what he said about Jota, but it was what he said afterwards. He said, "Yep, Jota did really well for us. We wish him all the best." As I was talking about before with Ange, with success, football changes really quickly, and we loved having him, and I'm sure he loved being here. But that just opens up a great opportunity for someone else to come and play for this great club and really build a career for themselves, or for one of the boys who maybe didn't get as much game time last year to step in. There are just opportunities galore and new names that hopefully the fans are going to be singing about. Loved that. Loved that it wasn't all just a gushing tribute to Jota. He was thinking about the future and saying, look, he's gone, but others can come in, thinking like Tillio, Yang, guys like that. And clearly Joe Hart's thinking about that too. And also maybe thinking about Abada in the process as well, because he never got as much game time, or Haksabanovic, as last year got some game time, but not as much as they maybe would have wanted. So I really like that about Joe Hart. Just sort of saying, yep, like Ange, he did well for us. He's gone. We're moving on, and it's up to other guys now to come in and make a name for themselves at the club, because they've all got an opportunity, and if they grasp it, it's a great place to be.
It was a PR dreams answer, Tony, wasn't it? When he said that. But yeah, well, it was a professional way of looking at it. We know Jota was a great talent at Celtic. Sad to lose him, but also at the same token, I don't think we could turn down that money. And yeah, Hart's obviously kind of in the family in a wee bit with that, given that it's the first press conference, mere days after Jota's left the club. So yeah, he dealt with that question really well, as you would expect. He's an experienced player, and it was interesting to hear him naming some of the guys in the squad. I think, just to touch on a couple of them, Haksabanovic is one that definitely excites me for maybe getting a bit more game time this season, Tony. I know there's been a lot of discussion about whether he could even potentially drop in and play as a number 10 rather than a winger on either side, which I think I would be quite interested to see, because we know Brendan Rodgers will adapt his the formation slightly from how Andrew's playing. Somebody like, Yang, who obviously hasn't signed as of now, but he's been linked. He looks like an exciting player. Tillio, which was obviously profiled with scouting reports. Ryan also spoke to Sasha as well about him. He seems like quite an exciting player. Obviously, Jota moving on will open up opportunities for these guys. I'd like to think that Celtic would still be looking to sign someone in that position, spend a bit of money in there to sort of replace Jota, given he did get up to, I think it's about 25 million for him. I'd be hoping that there would be a sort of extensive scouting process to try and replace somebody of Jota's attributes. But yeah, it's obviously the way you would expect somebody like Joe Hart to answer that question. But it was nice to hear him giving a shout out to a few players that he feels could make a bigger impact this season going.
Yeah, now my ball comes in and says, morning, my ball. Joe Hart's a great guy to have at the club. The days of gushing after those that have left is over for him as well. I just thought it was an expert, professionally handled question from a real experienced individual who, sees these things coming and doesn't say anything, untoward or stupid. So I dealt with the way we would deal with a 30-yard rasper, Aidan, you know what I mean?
There was
Just
a reason he was put out for that presser, Tony.
I think there was. That is the definition of safe pair of hands, isn't it? I
Yeah,
believe
absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
He was, just nodding sagely and wisely, and just the old head and coming away with everything you say, PR dream. And he also spoke about Kyogo. And I just love the way he spoke about Kyogo. This is what he said about Kyogo signing a new deal. He said, "It is huge. What a great bit of news that was. I love him as a person, and he's a beautiful person and an exceptional footballer. He has been brilliant since he came in and really shone for us last year in big moments. He sets the tone for a high press and an exciting football team. He is loved here, and obviously he has felt that because he has committed a real important time in his career to this club, and we appreciate that. I think that tells you everything you need to know about Kyogo's popularity in the dressing room. He's certainly a popular player on the in the stands. I was going to say on the terraces there, but hey, they're they're a thing of the past, aren't they? But yeah, and I think Joe just talking about him and gushing tells that he loves him as a person. Even when you see the wee clips from Celtic TV, there's a real camaraderie and a bond there, isn't there? And Kyogo's at the heart of it all. He's just such an infectious character, both on and off the pitch. But I think Celtic supporters, who, depending on who comes in, I think it's arguably the best piece of business that Celtic have conducted in the summer. Aidan getting Kyogo to sign for another 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a brilliant, as I said at the sort of start of the show, it was a phenomenal piece of business for Celtic getting that done. There was slight concern given they had 2 years left. Obviously, Andrew at Spurs that maybe there was Kyogo was going to move on, but the fact he's committed these futures is brilliant. 34 goals, I think it was last season, Tony.
It was, yes.
And because I think I was just slightly off my prediction for his final goal tally, but it's okay. I'm not bitter about it.
I
And
think I think we were all slightly off. I said 36. You said
yeah,
what,
I think
33?
we all just missed out
Yeah.
slightly. So sorry, we're not having a go at Kyogo for that. It's fine. Score more
no.
goals this season, we'll be all right. But yeah, it was excellent for Celtic to get that done. He's an important factor in a lot of what Celtic do. And he suited how Ange played, and I imagine he'll suit how Rodgers wants to play as well. So I was absolutely delighted for him to get that done. He clearly has an infectious personality in the dressing room, around the training ground, etc. We've seen that in a lot of the social media stuff, as you pointed out, and nobody's got a bad word to say about him. So I'm not surprised that Joe Hart was delighted at the news.
And basically, the good news kept coming with Aidan Macdonald also signing as well. I've been saying it all along. I don't think Brendan would have subscribed to the fire sale of the players, and one of the important things for him would have been to keep this group and squad around and at the club. But it just shows you from the initial conversations, there's two important players who have committed their futures. The more the merrier, and any more are welcome. Everybody now waiting to see if Haggerty will do it too. But I think Brendan Rodgers will have that effect on people once he speaks to them. I can't fathom why they would want to be, or if their head would be elsewhere, given the chance to work with Brendan Rodgers, who has come in the door. And we've speculated on this, but a potential, more than a potential, for being an upgrade on Ange Postecoglou in terms of a manager. We believe, your opinion, my opinion, and Ryan's opinion is that he's an elite level manager. I still believe that. I think it was the best appointment that Celtic could have made. So I think if you're a player, you're curious to work under this manager, because an opportunity to work under somebody who has talent as a manager doesn't come along that often in your career. And I think when you're presented with that opportunity, you have to take it. And Celtic are also presented with the opportunity that not only can they try and defend their domestic treble, but they're going to be pitched in the group stages of the Champions League straight away, and against some of the best that European football has to offer. It's a wonderful challenge, and I think Celtic are trying to meet that head on, and backing a manager who has a successful track record wherever he has gone. And now they're going all in on Rodgers to try and replicate that at Celtic, and maybe do what they failed to do the first time, and really back him with cold hard cash in the transfer market, and also try and take them to where they want to be in the European arena, which I keep banging on about, but the Celtic supporters crave that. And I think Rodgers, separating business from pleasure, but as a Celtic supporter, he wants that, and business-wise, he wants to be the man that takes them there.
Undoubtedly, I think that would go a long way for Brendan Rodgers cementing his legacy at Celtic if he was to do something in Europe. What that exactly looks like, I don't know. Whether that's dropping into the Europa League and having a very run at the latter stages, or getting out of a Champions League group, or even winning a game at home in the Champions League group stage would be progress, to be honest, Tony, because I think it's been 2013 since that's happened. So there's a lot of things that he could do that would improve Celtic in Europe, and fingers crossed he can do one of them. We discussed when he came in, there's no way he's agreed to come back to Celtic unless he's getting significant financial backing. And during Rodgers' sort of first couple of transfer windows, he did get financial backing. Maybe not as much as he's going to get this time, but there was money to spend there. The problem was it just sort of tapered off after that, which led to a lot of loan signings. Some of them even 6 month loans. Like, I don't need to go into it, but guys like Ollie Burke, etc. The important thing is they don't just back him for this transfer window in the summer. If Celtic keep performing and they keep getting better under them, you need to keep backing them, particularly if you're selling guys for 25 million plus.
Yeah. Now, Derek Smith comes in, morning Derek, and says no excuses not to back Brendan Rodgers because Celtic are cash rich. They announced their figures yesterday, didn't they? And they put a comment in that their figures would significantly exceed what they thought. Isn't that right, Aidan?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so I said before, Brendan Rodgers inheriting a wonderful situation, both on and off the pitch, and you got a wonderful squad of players, keep them together, and then being backed to the tune of what he wants without being financially reckless, then you try to keep a lid on it, aren't you? But you only feel that there are exciting times ahead for Celtic and this team, and you'll want to see what he can do with this group of players. Interesting to see that Joe Hart said he wants to encourage the younger ones as well, so that bodes well too, Aidan.
Absolutely. All the comments you're hearing coming out in terms of transfer budget, Rodgers' coaching, stuff about youth development has all been positive, Tony, at the moment. Obviously, longer term, we'll go to see if whether or not that was just speculation or that it was true, but it is seeming positive at the moment. Like, obviously, it was disappointing to lose Ange, disappointing to lose Jota, but football teams do move on at the end of the day. There is a transition out that is maybe only 2 years or so you get to keep these guys. I appreciate Jota was only signed for a year, but he was on loan for 2 years with the option to buy, so you still kind of got your equivalent to 2 seasons that you mostly get out of players like that. It's just one of those things, and it's in a new era now with Brendan Rodgers, really. But we're right in the middle of it. Obviously, Celtic very soon will be going to Japan. The games will be starting, which I know we'll be excited about. There's also the friend with Atletico Bilbao for James Forrest's testimonial, and obviously there'll be some other pre-season games in there as well, even though they've not really been confirmed yet. I know the game with Wales was cancelled in South Korea, but I think it's fair to say we know Celtic will play more than 3 matches over the pre-season, so there'll be plenty of football before things get kicked off at home to Ross County. And just once again, I said this last season, but I'm just delighted there's no Champions League qualifiers. It's just brilliant, Tony. I still can't get used to it because they'd be getting ready to start in maybe the next 10 days or so, if you were right in the thick of that. So the players have had a good time off. Obviously, some of them have still got a wee bit longer, like Callum McGregor, etc., which is fair enough. They'll get back in, hopefully have a positive tour of Japan, some other pre-season games, and then be all ready to go for Ross County on the 5th of August.
And Michael, the boy, comes in morning. Michael, cash rich. Well, if we want to progress in Europe, Celtic need to put that quality in the park, give Brendan the money to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what's missing now, Aidan? What's missing from Celtic's pre-season build-up? Do you want more players to sign new contracts, or do you want that statement signing that Celtic supporters crave, that stardust quality, marquee, call it what you like? Are you holding out for that, or are you waiting anxiously to see who the first big name is that Brendan brings to the club?
Can I have both, Tony?
You can have anything you want.
Yeah, I'd like to see
this
obviously.
Moment in time, innit?
Indeed. I'd like to see a couple of marquee signings undoubtedly, but also I'd like to see somebody like Rio Haggerty signing up for a new contract. I don't know how likely that is. I think it'll be a lot more difficult than it probably was for Kyogo or Maeda, but he'd be the other one I'd probably want to see signed up in a deal. As far as I can think outside of that, I'm pretty sure that Celtic are okay contract-wise for their main players that they would want to keep. There is a couple of guys that are on shorter-term deals, but there may be players that you'd more want to see the club move on. Maybe with the exception of somebody like David Turnbull. I know there's been a lot of discussion. Alan Morrison did a piece recently about whether or not he's got a future at the club, and I think he kind of came to the conclusion that it does have this deficiencies, but the way that Brendan Rodgers was able to develop somebody like Tom Roderick, maybe that could apply again to David Turnbull. Now people can debate whether or not Roderick was kind of had more natural ability there than Turnbull, so maybe somebody like that might get a contract extension as well, Tony. But I think Haggerty would probably be my priority. The other guys that are sort of in there, O'Reilly, Carter Vickers, etc., they all kind of still have about 3.5, 4 years left on their deals. So I feel like they're pretty well sort of signed up. So if somebody does come in, we should be able to get a similar offer to what we got for Jota. But I think marquee signings would be good, Tony. In talking of marquee signings, Stuart Ross today, it's on the site, did a scouting report on young boys midfielder Fabian Rieder, who has had some, I would say it's probably fair to say, tentative links to maybe join Celtic at the moment. We've not heard a lot of progress on it. There was obviously, we were kind of didn't want to talk about it maybe too much earlier in the week, Tony, I think, when you and I was on, because we didn't really know how much there was to it. It seems to be that there's kind of more links coming out about him. He is kind of probably seen as one of the top talents in Europe at the moment. It might be somebody that some fans might think taking it out of a league in terms of whether or not Celtic could sign him. But we thought it was interesting to profile just to see how good he was, and I'm not summing up the best here, Tony, but it's fair to say he's very good when you look at what he can offer.
Well,
So the
I,
scouting report for that's in the chat now if anybody wants to read it.
I think it's fair to say Celtic could sign him.
Yeah,
They have the resources to do that. Whether they want to is another thing. To say, to spend a lot of that resource on the one player is another thing. But Patrick McLaughlin comes in and says Hatate and Cameron Carter-Vickers on new contracts. That's what you'd like to see. Plunge McNugget saying a statement signing. That could be Reader. You never know. And Sean Bush saying, remember, Celtic have got to live within their budget. I've always said that. Don't be reckless, but if Celtic want to sign a player who's valued in the region of 12 to 15 million pound, then if it makes sense to Celtic and that's what they want to do, then they will do that. But Michael the boy comes back and says, "Let's make a statement and go and try and get the boy Reader. The boy's a baller." That's what you're saying. That's what Stuart Ross piece derives as well.
Detailed that
piece. And I think he's the player that excites a lot of people, whether it falls within Celtic's parameters, financial parameters, and they can do a deal is another thing. But I've always said if you can bring a player like that in and it's satisfactory to both parties, then so be it. Then that might be the difference, in Europe, Aidan. So you have to seriously consider it. Celtic's record outlay is 9 million. You have to say that in order to take Celtic to the next level, then they might have to think about equaling that or going beyond it to bring in players to take you to that so-called next level in the European arena. I keep banging on about whether that's Reader, who knows. If it's somebody else, so be it. But I think it's fair to say that Celtic certainly have resource to bring in players of that quality and at that price. It's just to determine whether they would, I'm not saying fritter that money, but, spend or have such a heavy financial outlay on one player. Just it's not been Celtic style, but they might have to change that style in order to advance to the place that they want to go. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're right, Tony. Look, it's important to live within your means, but what I would say is Celtic will be getting up to 30 million guaranteed for getting in the Champions League, if not more. They're taking in 25 million for Jota that they probably couldn't have accounted for, I don't know, a month, 2 months ago. Obviously, maybe not the full 25 million, I know there's a Benfica sell on, but I think it will be at least between 18 and 20 million. So that's an extra. If somebody like Haggerty is to move on as well, Celtic should really be, maybe not necessarily spending 14, 15 million on one player, because I understand that, but I would be expecting us to maybe putting in a record transfer window in terms of money spent on players, Tony, because we've got so much money coming in. You need to speculate to accumulate, as they say, and if Celtic want to do anything in Europe, there's certain parts of the squad they will just need to improve. That's the truth. We've seen deficiencies last season in areas. Now, Celtic are strong in a lot of positions, but the fact is they've got plenty of money in the bank. Do you know what I mean? Once again, just sold out season tickets. As I mentioned, Champions League revenue, Jota revenue. If somebody else like Haggerty moves on, I'd rather he signed and stayed, but look, there is a chance he could leave. You'd imagine he'll be commanding a similar fee to what Jota went for. So really, I understand living within your means, and you're right when you say that, but there's really no excuse for why Celtic shouldn't spend big this summer as well.
420 somewhere coming in. Show me the money, he's saying. For those of you who remember the Harry Enfield character, loads of money. I think lots of people are thinking that about Celtic at this moment in time, that they've got a huge wad and they are, as Harry Enfield catchphrase was, waving it about, checkbook and all that kind of stuff. Loads of money. But yeah, I think that may well be the case, but it has to be spent wisely, Aidan, and be as prudent as they can. Just wouldn't want to see Celtic act frivolously. But I think if Fabian Reeder's a person of interest and they want to ask the question, then they have to be serious about their intent. And if that's the price that that people are saying he's worth, 12, 15 million, and Celtic can't show that interest and then balk at that figure, if they really are serious with their intentions, that would be a statement of intent bringing in a player of that calibre and that ilk, they have to wait up and say, is that the player that they need? Is that the player that they think can take them on? And I mean take them on in terms of, because domestically they've got nothing to prove, have they? But take them on in Europe. I think that's what Brendan's talking about and what Joe Hart's talking about when he's come in and he's laid it on the line. So I fully expect Celtic, as you say, to have a record-breaking transfer window, and possibly, well, I do expect them to break that record of 9 million shelled out for Edouard, whether that be on Reader or someone else, it remains to be seen. But I think that would be your statement of intent. You've already made a couple with the re-signing of Kyogo and Maeda. You've actually made 3 because you brought in Brendan Rodgers as well. So I think Celtic really are tooling up their meaning business, and now it's just to see who they bring in, to see if that business is, ratcheted up a notch as well in terms of personnel coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been 3 statements made, as you point out there. I just think Celtic do need to just push the boat out a bit this window, Tony. You need to build from a position of strength. Celtic didn't do it previously under Brendan Rodgers, made some terrible decisions in a lot of areas. And the fact of the matter is, they're in a good position now with just happens to be Brendan Rodgers back on the back of the good work Ange did. You do need to speculate to accumulate. It's just one of those things. If Celtic want to improve in Europe, it's what Brendan Rodgers has spoke about. It's what Michael Nicholson spoke about. Anybody's probably pretty much anybody involved with the club spoke about. Even Joe Hart yesterday that wanted to do better in Europe. In my opinion, the only way you can do that, we're never going to bridge the gap with the absolute elite teams. Right, you're never going to catch a Real Madrid or a Man City or Barcelona or that. You maybe get the odd game. You can maybe compete, but even then, as we've seen with Real Madrid, you compete for 45 minutes, but you still get beat 3-0. Celtic is about us trying to bridge the gap and get closer to a team like Porto, a team like Salzburg, etc. In my opinion, anyway. I guess if you want to throw it in, since the Red Bull model, Leipzig, then maybe a wee bit of a sort of rung above again. But teams like that, maybe the sort of second tier European teams, Tony, Celtic want to be in there trying to compete with these sides. Now, I know some of those teams will have more money than us. It's just the way it is. They play in more competitive leagues, bigger TV deals. Salzburg that I mentioned, obviously they've got the Red Bull sponsorship, so I understand that. But Celtic, in my opinion, can be in there trying to compete with teams like that. And I think that's what we need to aim for right now. And one thing that Ange did say that I completely agree with, it was making steady steps for Europe each year, like sort of gradual gains, getting to the stage that we're not just happy to be in the Champions League. After you have a couple of years of being sort of regular in it, you then want to try and progress, whether that's finishing third and then second and then trying to do something in the knockout stages. And I just think this is a good opportunity this summer to sort of keep that sort of project going.
Well, I'll put my stall out here, Mikey Boyce, and let's make a statement and try to get the boy Fabian Reader, the boys a baller. Aidan, I want to get to the knockout stage of the Champions League. I want to finish second in the group.
I would love that, Tony.
That's my priority.
So.
And if you, and a lot of that could be determined by what you do in this window and the personnel that you bring in. That's what you should be aiming for, because it could be the difference between going even further, last 16, last 8. So if that's what Celtic's aims are, then go and do it. The very least they should be targeting is finishing third in that group. But last year was the biggest learning curve for Celtic in the Champions League. They learned a harsh lesson, but vital lessons, I think, were learned there. They should have beat Shakhtar Donetsk home and away.
Yeah.
They got themselves back level in Germany and then threw it away.
A couple of chances in that game as well, to be fair. And
then
Joe Hart individually.
Threw it away. And the chances they missed at home against Real Madrid when they were on top would have asked the Champions League holders at that particular time a question. So, as Ange says, and I agree with Ange, and said they had moments in all those games. They turned out to be what-if moments, but you now turn those what-ifs into reality. You be more clinical in front of goal. You'll have a better team because you will bring in better players, and you have to, on your travels, win a football match. Bottom line, if you want to progress to that next level, you have to go away and start winning. That's it, isn't it? The draw in Warsaw really done for them, didn't it? in a game where they dominated against Shakhtar and missed countless amount of chances. That was a game that really done for them in that group, wasn't it?
Yeah, and even though it was, like I say, we don't want to go back over the Champions League too much, but given it as part of this discussion we're having, I think you and I said it at the time, I think it might have been you and I on the briefing the next day, Tony, that even though there was still 4 games after that, that felt like a major blow. It almost even felt like a defeat just because of the amount of chances
Yeah.
Celtic had, because you knew you still had to go away to Real Madrid at that stage, away to Leipzig. You highlighted the 2 Shakhtar games. Maybe some before it, people might have said slightly arrogantly, but then when the way Celtic played, they clearly were a better team than Shakhtar. We looked at it and said, these are 2 matches you've got to win to have any sort of chance of doing anything. And the fact one of them was a draw, that then meant you really had to beat Leipzig one of the games, or had to get something against Real Madrid, which we knew was going to be too hard. So yeah, they were disappointing ties, and like I say, I think that how that Shakhtar away game didn't end 3 or 4-1 to Celtic, I'll never know, Tony. But yeah, I still get PTSD a bit about that game, I think. So let's not go into it too much. But yeah, they need to be more clinical in front of goal, and another way you might be able to do that is by sort of maybe shopping and buying more elite talent.
Yeah. Paul McKee comes in, Tony, team spend a lot more than Celtic will, but don't finish second in the group. I get that, Paul, but I'm all about Celtic, and I'm all about Celtic going for it. And I think they have a chance in this transfer window to strengthen that football team and that squad of players. They're in a real position of strength, so go and do that. And the chips fall where they may in terms of the draw in Europe. But I'm vastly aware that teams spend a hell of a lot of money and don't get that far in the Champions League. But I don't really care about other teams. I care about
No,
Celtic,
of course, we're
and
only talking Celtic.
I want them to have a rip at it. And I couldn't tell you what other teams spend because my life is consumed with the fortunes of this football club, and I just think that it wouldn't take much. Well, say it wouldn't take much, but I think with the addition of 3 or 4 players and the proviso that you keep everybody else there, 3 or 4 quality players could turn Celtic into a team that could conceivably finish second in a Champions League group, that could finish third in a Champions League group and do something Europa League wise. I just trying to kind of envisage the future because I think we've got a manager that wants to and is desperate to take them to that. So that's what they're going to do. And I think there's a board that sees that opportunity as well. And they have to do it now because they are in that position of financial strength, announcing figures that exceed their expectation. If you can't do it now, then you're never going to do it. And I just think it's what everybody who follows the fortunes of this football club wants, isn't it? To be restore some of your reputation and pride back in Europe and get those results, shatter all those statistics that are thrown at you about a knockout tie and stuff like that, and shatter it big time by actually achieving something. That's what I want for this group of players, this manager, and this generation of supporters.
Inspirational words there, Tony. Love that. But you're absolutely bang on in everything you're saying there. That is where Celtic need to go in and improve, is in Europe. We know it. Been discussed to death, not won a knockout tie for so many years. And it's got to be better for a club of our size. We need
Yeah.
to be performing better in Europe. We know about the gaps in the Champions League, but I'm always not wanting to mention that too much because there also is also a significant financial gap between us and pretty much every other team in Scotland. Obviously, Rangers are a wee bit closer to us, but outside of that, there's a significant gap. So I don't like to talk too much about that, and that was another thing I enjoyed. Ange never really wanted to mention that because he still felt there was gains we could make. So yeah, nah, you're spot on there, Tony. Fingers crossed that's what we'll see this time under Brendan Rodgers, performing better in Europe.
We've got a wonderful opportunity to do it, probably arguably one of the best opportunities in our history. Paul comes back in. That isn't his point. He says he doesn't care about other teams either. Yeah, I know the point you're making that clubs spend vast fortunes and achieve nothing in the Champions League. Of course, I get that, but why can't Celtic achieve in the Champions League? They now
It's just
have,
about defining what that achievement is, Tony, isn't it?
yeah,
And that's
of
hard.
course.
That's hard for us to do.
And I just feel that Celtic have a wonderful opportunity right now to be the team that they want to be and to reach the levels that they want to reach. And the Champions League's the hardest competition, uh, Of course it is, because it's slanted against clubs like Celtic. I get all that, but I still don't think that it rules them out from being a competitive team in it, regardless of how much money you're spending. You just be prudent and you be wise, and you bring in players that can take you to that level. I don't think that's beyond Celtic, regardless of how much they're spending. You don't have to spend a fortune to bring in good players. That's what I mean. It's about recruiting good players, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Recruitment is vital, and that was a concern for a lot of people with Brendan Rodgers coming back, and understandably so with some of the signings last time, whether or not it was fully the club's fault or fully his fault. I think probably a bit of both. And then Tony, to be fair to say, I don't think either party and that was entirely without blame. On the same token, it wasn't all individually someone's fault. This time it's different. There's no Lee Congerton. It's Mark Wall who's been in there in place. Somebody that Ange praised. Someone who at the moment anyway has a good track record with signings, including the two players I've already brought in, Odin Thiago Holm, Marco Tilio. I think two players that a lot of fans are excited about. They've profiled well in the scouting reports, etc. So their numbers look good. So fingers crossed that Rodgers' sort of expertise and knowing what he wants can combine well with Mark Wall and the recruitment staff sort of eye for a player. And that will hopefully reflect on good money being spent in areas that are needed and doing well in Europe for longer term.
Glenn Miller said, Andrew's building for Europe. Brendan will continue to build. Dare to dream. Well, they always say, I'm the eternal dreamer, eternal optimist. Haven't I, Aidan?
Indeed, Tony, indeed. And rightfully so, because it should be a positive time for Celtic with the position they're in.
And Paul comes back in. Yes, Paul, I think we're both wanting the same thing, aren't we? Just a question of how we go about it. We definitely want the same thing. Paul, I'm not here to argue with you. I think everybody wants what's best for Celtic, and yeah, we'll keep our fingers and toes crossed, big man. Indeed, we can come back to me in the summer if it doesn't happen and say I told you so. I'm all for that. Not a problem with that, Paul. But I hope you've enjoyed the show today, Paul, and others. And if you have, there's a strap line at the bottom. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism in the process. Myself, young Aidan there, and Ryan will try to provide that. And we'll say big up to Ryan today, who's away to his graduation, isn't he, Aidan, I believe?
He is indeed, yeah. Good luck to Ryan today. He's got that tonight, I believe. So, yeah, good luck to him.
Got a first class honours degree. So good on him. Good luck to him. Well done to him. He worked very hard for that. But anyway, if you want to subscribe to the Celtic Way, just click that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We appreciate all the comments. We carried away with the talking there. We tried to flick up as many as possible. They were coming in. They come in rapidly. But yeah, we hope if we didn't read your comments out today, we'll read them out in the fullness of time or in the future shows. But we hope you enjoyed we went on 48 minutes, Aidan. That's nearly 49 minutes. That's sometimes you think there's not much to talk about, but there's always something to talk about in the world of Celtic, isn't there? There always is. Aidan, thank you for your contribution again today. First class. Guys, thanks for your comments. Thanks for getting involved. Can't do it without you. We always say it. We love the community that we've built up here. We hope you enjoy it, and we'll see what happens today in the world of Celtic. Aidan, I believe that Marco Tilio might be speaking to the journalist today, so see what he's got to say. Andrew Gillier, it's okay, Tony, we chat amongst ourselves. Oh, I know that. We can see that. But we'll keep our eyes on that, Aidan. See if anything else transpires, and see if anything else transpires contract-wise or incomings-wise. Paul, I hope you have a good weekend, sir. Everybody else, I hope you have a great weekend as well.
Cheers, guys.
Roll on the football coming back. It can't come quick enough, can it, Aidan?
It can, no. Fingers crossed. The 5th of August for competitive football, but I think the 19th of July is the first game in Japan, and I believe there'll be a match before that as well, and as part of the trip to Portugal. Whether or not that's going to be televised, we don't know yet, but as soon as we find out, we'll get that up on the website.
Roll on the 19th of July. That's what I say. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. We'll do it all again on Monday. Take care. All the best.
Cheers.